The flashing lights cut across the glass storefronts like knives, red and blue slicing the evening into pieces. Marcus Reed slowed his steps, instinct tightening his shoulders before his mind caught up. He had just left the mall's west entrance. Phone pressed his ear, listening to a tenant complain about a leaking ceiling. The smell of pretzels and floor polish still clung to the air. "Sir, you, stop right there." Marcus turned. A patrol car idled at the curb. The officer didn't step out immediately. He stayed seated, hand resting casually near his belt, eyes already narrowed. Marcus felt a familiar calculation begin in his chest. Posture, tone, hands visible, voice calm. Survival habits learned long before success. "I'm on a call," Marcus said, lifting the phone slightly. "Is there a problem?" The officer smirked. "Problem as you fit description." A small crowd slowed nearby. A woman pretended to check her bag. A security guard looked away. The mall's glowing directory board hummed behind Marcus, listing stores he had personally approved, contract he had signed. "Step away from the building," the officer said, opening the door now. "Hands where I can see them." "For what?" Marcus asked. The officer's voice dropped, sharp and public. "Don't get smart with me, boy." The word landed hard. Heavy, final. Cold metal closed around Marcus's wrists as his phone slipped from his hand and cracked against the pavement. Somewhere, a tenant's voice kept talking, unaware. The officer leaned close and whispered, "You people always think you own the place." Marcus stared at the mall's bright entrance as the cuffs tightened, and the automatic doors slid open behind them. Marcus Reed had learned to read rooms the way some people read weather, the way a voice tightened, the way eyes lingered too long, the way authority entered a space before it spoke. As a patrol car idled near the curb, he felt the shift immediately, a pressure in the air that had nothing to do with sirens or law. "Sir," the officer called again, louder now. "I said stop." Marcus ended the call and lowered his phone. "I'm right here," he said evenly. "What's going on?" The officer stepped out, boots heavy against the pavement. His name tag read Hargrove. Mid-40s. Confident posture. The kind of man used to being obeyed. "We had a report," Hargrove said. "Man matching your description loitering near closed businesses." Marcus glanced behind him at the brightly lit mall entrance. "It's 8 p.m., he said. "The mall is open." Hargrove's eyes flicked toward the doors, then back. "Don't argue with me," he said. "Turn around." "For what reason?" Marcus asked. Hargrove exhaled sharply. "You refusing a lawful order?" A couple slowed nearby. Someone raised the phone, then lowered it again. The security guard by the entrance shifted his weight and looked at the ground. "I'm asking what I'm being detained for," Marcus said. His voice stayed calm, but his pulse didn't. "That's my right." Hargrove stepped closer. Too close. "Your attitude is a reason," he said. "Hands behind your back." Cold metal closed around Marcus's wrists before he could finish his next sentence. The cuffs pinched tighter than necessary. "This is unnecessary," Marcus said. "Stop resisting," Hargrove replied automatically. "I'm not resisting." "That's not what it looks like." Marcus felt a familiar burn of anger and restraint colliding. He scanned faces. No one intervened. No one spoke. The mall directory glowed behind them, listing stores he had personally approved, leases he had negotiated, jobs he had created. Hargrove leaned in. "You people always think money protects you," he muttered. Marcus met his eyes. "I didn't say anything about money." Hargrove smiled thinly. "Exactly." The patrol car door opened. The world narrowed to plastic seats, and the sound of the mall doors sliding shut as Marcus was guided away from the building he owned, unnamed and unrecognized. The holding area smelled like disinfectant and old coffee, a sharp, institutional scent that clung to the back of Marcus Reed's throat. The door shut behind him with a hollow clang that echoed longer than it should have. He counted the seconds without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. Time slowed here, stretched in by concrete walls and fluorescent lights that hummed without warmth. "Stand over there," Hargrove said, unhooking the cuffs from Marcus's wrists only to replace them with another set, tighter, more deliberate. Marcus flexes fingers, feeling blood rush back in short, painful bursts. I still haven't been told why I'm here. Hargrove didn't answer. He gestured toward a yellow line on the floor, like it was a border Marcus had already crossed. Another officer, younger, thinner, eyes already tired, stepped forward with a clipboard. Name? The officer asked. Marcus read. Date of birth. Marcus gave it. The officer wrote quickly, not looking up. Address? Marcus hesitated for half a second, then answered. The pause was noted. Everything was noted. Hargrove leaned against the counter. You got any weapons on you, Marcus? No. Any drugs? No. Any reason you were hanging around a commercial property you don't belong to? Marcus looked at him. I wasn't hanging around. I was leaving. Hargrove's mouth twitched. That's your version. The younger officer cleared his throat. Sir, I need you to turn toward the wall. For what? Marcus asked. Search. The officer said, quieter now. Marcus complied. Hands on the wall. Feet apart. He stared at a faded poster about community trust while gloved hands patted his pockets, his jacket, his waistband. The search was thorough but careless, impersonal in a way that still managed to feel invasive. Nothing, the officer said. Hargrove nodded like that proved something anyway. We'll see. They walked him down a narrow hallway lined with doors, each one identical, each one heavy. Somewhere deeper in the building, a phone rang and went unanswered. Marcus's mind kept circling back to Maul, to the tenant waiting on the other end of that dropped call, to the security cameras, to the quiet efficiency with which systems continued to run without him. At the booking desk, a desk sergeant sat hunched over a computer, chewing gum slowly. He glanced up once, eyes flicking over Marcus, then back to the screen. What be we got? The sergeant asked. Suspicious loitering, Hargrove said. Non-compliant. Obstructive. Marcus turned. That's not true. The sergeant raised one hand, without looking up. Sir, you'll get your chance. When? Marcus asked. The sergeant sighed. When it's your turn. Hargrove handed over paperwork. He was giving me attitude, kept questioning orders. Marcus laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. I asked why I was being detained. Hargrove's eyes hardened. You hear that? He said to the sergeant. Still doing it. The sergeant glanced at Marcus now, really looked at him. His gaze slid from Marcus's face to his clothes, tailored jacket, clean shoes, then back to the screen. Prince, the sergeant said. Marcus was led to another station where his fingers were pressed one by one onto a glass plate. The machine beeped with each capture. Left thumb, right thumb. The sound was precise, indifferent. You ever been arrested before? The younger officer asked. No. First time for everything, Hargrove said. Marcus said nothing. He focused on breathing, on not reacting. He had learned early that reactions were currency here, spent against you. A camera flashed. Once. Twice. Take off the jacket, the officer said. Marcus hesitated. Am I being charged? Take off the jacket. He did. The room felt colder immediately. As they processed him, bits of conversation drifted in from nearby desks. News, already asking questions. Maul incident. Body can better be clean. Marcus's head lifted. What did you say? Hargrove smiled. Nothing you need to worry about. I want a lawyer, Marcus said. The room went quiet for a fraction of a second. Not silence. Pause. A recalibration. The sergeant leaned back in his chair. You can call one after intake. I want to make a phone call, Marcus said. You get one, the sergeant replied. After intake. Hargrove folded his arms. You should have thought about that earlier. Marcus met his gaze. Earlier than what? Existing. Hargrove stepped forward, voice low. Careful. Marcus felt it then. Not fear exactly, but the weight of imbalance. This wasn't about a report or a description. This was about control, about who was allowed to question and who wasn't. They led him to a holding cell with a metal bench bolted to the wall. The door shut, the lock slid home. You'll wait here, the younger officer said, avoiding eye contact. How long? Marcus asked. The officer hesitated. Depends. On what? Marcus wanted to ask. On who? On how this story gets written. The officer walked away. Marcus sat. The bench was cold even through his clothes. He rubbed his wrists absent-mindedly, feeling the faint ridges where the cuffs had been. Minutes passed. Or hours. Time blurred. Finally, a guard returned and slid a phone through the bars. You get one call. Marcus picked it up, hand steady now. He dialed a number he knew by heart. Vanessa, he said when she answered. It's me. Her voice sharpened instantly. Marcus? Where are you? At the precinct, he said. I've been arrested. Silence on the other end. Then, controlled and precise. On what charge? They haven't said. Another pause. I'm calling the lawyer, Vanessa said. And security. And PR. No, Marcus said. Not par. Not yet. You're sitting in a cell, she said. This is already public. Marcus closed his eyes. Just get the lawyer. When the call ended, he sat back, staring at the scuffed floor. Somewhere above him, narratives were forming. Reports typed, explanations drafted, justifications prepared. Hargrove passed by the cell a few minutes later. He slowed, looked in. Funny thing, Hargrove said conversationally. People like you always think the system's going to bend. Marcus stood. I think the system is showing exactly what it is. Hargrove chuckled. We'll see. He walked away, boots echoing down the hall. Marcus sat back down, the weight of the night pressing in. For the first time since the cuffs closed, the thoughts surfaced uninvited and sharp. This wasn't over when he walked out. This was just the beginning. The mall did not sleep when Marcus Reed disappeared from it. It adjusted. Automatic doors slid open and shut with the same obedient rhythm. Escalators hummed. Music piped softly through ceiling speakers, a curated calm that ignored the tightening knots spreading behind storefronts and service desks. By 9 p.m., word had moved faster than any official notice. Did you hear? A cashier whispered, leaning toward her co-worker while pretending to rearrange gum packets. They arrested the owner. Her co-worker frowned. Owner of what? This place, she said, gesturing vaguely upward, as if ownership lived somewhere above the food court. That's not funny. I'm serious. My cousin worked security. Cops took him away in cuffs. Across the concourse, a shoe store manager locked her door 10 minutes early. She told customers it was for inventory. She did not explain why her hands shook as she turned the key. In the maintenance corridor, two janitors paused their carts and exchanged looks, a silent calculation of risk. Someone muttered, figures, and someone else said nothing at all. By 10, the mall's internal messaging system issued a notice. Temporary security protocols in effect. Please remain calm. Remain calm. As if calm were a switch that could be flipped without context. At the security office, the supervisor, a man who had shaken Marcus's hand every Monday morning, watched the live camera feeds with his jaw set. He replayed the clip from the west entrance again. And again, he saw the moment Marcus turned, the officer's posture, the cuffs closing. He noted the absence of aggression, the lack of resistance. You want to flag it? One of his guards asked quietly. The supervisor didn't answer right away. He stared at the pause frame where Marcus's phone lay cracked on the pavement. Let's wait, he said finally, until we know more. Until we know which way this goes. He didn't say. At the precinct, Marcus sat on the metal bench, unaware of precise choreography unfolding without him. He thought of the mall not as a building, but as a web, tenants, vendors, employees, contracts, all pulling against one another now that the center had been abruptly removed. A guard passed his cell. You got a lot of people calling, the guard said, almost casually. Who? Marcus asked. The guard shrugged. Lawyers. Some woman saying she runs operations. News desk left a message. Marcus closed his eyes. Vanessa, of course. You gonna tell me what I'm being charged with? Marcus asked. The guard shook his head. Not my call. In the mall's administrative wing, Vanessa stood in Marcus's office, phone pressed tight to her ear. The glass walls reflected her face back at her, composed, professional, furious. "They won't give a reason," she said. "They won't even confirm his status." On the other end, the attorney exhaled. "That's not unusual in the first few hours." "It should be," Vanessa snapped. "He's not some random." She stopped herself, corrected. "He's a citizen." "Yes," the attorney said carefully. "And that's the point." Vanessa hung up and turned to the conference table, where 3 department heads sat stiff-backed. Finance, legal, security, all waiting. "We proceed as if he's unavailable," she said. "No statements. No assumptions. Business continues." The security supervisor cleared his throat. "The police asked for access to our footage." Vanessa's eyes lifted. "Did you give it?" "I told him it needs legal approval." "Good," she said. "Hold." A junior manager shifted uncomfortably. "Will they freeze assets?" "They won't," Vanessa said. "Not without cause." "Do they need cause?" someone asked quietly. The question hung there unanswered. Back on the concourse, a group of teenagers clustered near the railing. Phones out. One of them scrolled through a shaky video already spreading online. Marcus in cuffs, the officer's voice sharp and dismissive. "That's messed up," one of them said. "He must have done something." Another replied automatically. "Like what?" A girl asked. "Walking." They laughed nervously, unsure if they were joking. By midnight, local news ran a brief segment. "Man detained after suspicious activity at downtown shopping center." The anchor said, "Expression neutral." The footage cut before the cuffs were visible. Marcus watched none of it. He lay back on the bench, hands folded over his chest, staring at the ceiling. He had spent years building redundancy into his businesses, systems that didn't rely on his presence. Tonight, those systems were being tested in ways he hadn't planned for. A new officer stopped outside his cell. Older, calm. "Mr. Reed," she said. "Yes." "You're being held pending review," she said. "No charges filed yet." "How long does review take?" Marcus asked. She hesitated. "As long as it takes." He studied her face. "Do you know why I was arrested?" Her mouth tightened. "I know what's in the report." "And do you believe it?" She didn't answer. She slid a blanket through the bars instead. At the mall, cleaners moved through empty corridors, their machines echoing too loudly. In Marcus's office, Vanessa sat alone now, lights dimmed, scrolling through emails marked urgent. Tenant concerns. Vendor threats. One message stood out. Subject line blunt. "Police presence hurting business." She forwarded it to legal without comment. Outside, a patrol car cruised past the mall entrance, slower than necessary. Back in the cell, Marcus sat up as footsteps approached. Hargrove stopped in front of him again. "Your place is causing quite a stir," Hargrove said lightly. Marcus stood. "It's a mall," he said. "It's supposed to." Hargrove chuckled. "Funny thing, you disappear and everyone gets nervous." "Funny thing," Marcus replied. "You arrest the wrong man and systems reveal themselves." Hargrove's smile faded. "You think this is about you?" Marcus held his gaze. "I think it's about who you think I am." Hargrove leaned closer. "Sleep while you can." He walked away. Marcus sat back down, the noise of the precinct settling into a low, constant hum. Somewhere beyond concrete walls, the mall kept breathing, uneasy, altered, proving a truth Marcus had always known but never felt so sharply. Power didn't vanish when you removed a person. It shifted, and it remembered who forced it to move. The lawyer arrived without ceremony. Marcus knew it was her before he saw her face. The sound of her shoes measured unhurried, cut through the precinct's background noise with confidence that didn't ask permission. When she stopped in front of the cell, the younger officers straightened without realizing they were doing it. "Marcus Reed," she said. "I'm Elaine Porter." Marcus stood. "Thank you for coming." Elaine studied him for half a second longer than necessary. Not his clothes, not his posture, but his eyes. The look wasn't sympathy. It was assessment. They let you see him already? Hargrove's voice came from behind her. Elaine turned slowly. They don't let me, she said. I inform them. Hargrove crossed his arms. He's being held pending review. Elaine nodded. Then you won't mind explaining the legal basis. The sergeant appeared, summoned by tone alone. Ms. Porter, he said, we're still processing. Processing requires cause. Elaine cut in. So far, I see none. Marcus watched the exchange carefully. This was a language he understood. Leverage, precision, silence used as pressure. He was detained for suspicious loitering. Hargrove said. Escalated due to noncompliance. Elaine pulled out a legal pad. Define loitering. Hargrove blinked. Hanging around a closed business. The mall was open, Elaine said. You know that. I know that. The cameras know that. Try again. The sergeant cleared his throat. Officer Hargrove perceived a potential threat. Elaine finally looked at him. Perceived by whom exactly? Silence. Elaine turned back to Hargrove. Did he threaten you? No. Did he attempt to flee? No. Did he resist arrest? He was argumentative. Elaine wrote something down. Argument is not a crime. Hargrove's jaw tightened. You weren't there. Elaine looked up, eyes sharp. Neither were your supervisors when you decided to escalate. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief, but alignment. The facts were finally being spoken in the right order. I want to see the body camera footage, Elaine said. The sergeant hesitated. That requires authorization. Elaine smiled thinly. You can give it voluntarily, or I can compel it within the hour. Another pause. A recalculation. We'll retrieve it, the sergeant said. As they waited, Elaine stepped closer to Marcus's cell. Have they charged you? No. Good, she said. That means they're nervous. Hargrove scoffed. You think this is a game? Elaine didn't look at him. No. Games have rules. An officer returned with a tablet. The footage loaded slowly. Grainy at first, then clear. Marcus watched himself on screen, turning, hands visible, voice controlled. He watched Hargrove's posture shift, the space close, the word that wasn't necessary but was chosen anyway. Pause it, Elaine said. The frame froze on Marcus's face mid-sentence. Officer, she said calmly, why did you close distance at this moment? Hargrove shrugged. Officer safety. Elaine tapped the screen. His hands were visible. His tone was neutral. There was no threat vector. Hargrove said nothing. Elaine let the silence stretch. Then resume. The cuffs came out on screen faster than memory allowed. The words followed. The tone. The escalation. Elaine stopped it again. Do you hear that? She asked the room. The sergeant frowned. Hear what? The absence, Elaine said. No warning. No explanation. No lawful basis stated. She turned to Marcus. Did he inform you of your detention? No. Elaine nodded. Thank you. Hargrove took a step forward. You're dissecting this like it's a classroom exercise. Elaine met his gaze. I'm dissecting it like it's evidence. She closed the tablet. My client is being released. The sergeant hesitated. We still need. You need probable cause. Elaine said. You don't have it. What you do have is unlawful detention, potential civil liability, and a body cam that contradicts your report. Marcus watched the sergeant's shoulders sag just slightly. We can't just, the sergeant began. Elaine leaned in. Then call your supervisor. They waited again. This time, the waiting felt different. Less endless. More brittle. Hargrove paced. You think this ends with him walking out? Elaine didn't answer him. She spoke to Marcus instead. When you leave, she said quietly, do not speak to anyone without me present. Not police. Not media. Marcus nodded. Understood. The sergeant returned with a man in a suit Marcus hadn't seen before. Captain's bars. Careful expression. Ms. Porter, the captain said. Let's talk. They stepped aside. Voices dropped. Marcus caught fragments. Optics. Pending review. No charges at this time. Finally, Elaine returned. They're releasing you, she said. No charges. Marcus exhaled slowly. Just like that. Not just like that, she said. They'll try to frame it as a misunderstanding. Hargrove laughed bitterly. You people always want to be victims. Elaine turned on him so fast Marcus almost missed it. No, she said. You want to be unaccountable. Hargrove opened his mouth, closed it. Marcus's belongings were returned. Wallet, keys, phone, cracked screen taped over with evidence seal. As they walked toward the exit, Marcus glanced back once. Hargrove stood by the desk, watching. This isn't over, Hargrove said. Elaine didn't break stride. You're right, she said. Now it's documented. Outside, the night air felt unreal. Marcus stood still for a moment, grounding himself. Elaine watched him. You okay? I'm free, Marcus said. That's not the same thing. She nodded. No, it's just the beginning. The lawyer arrived without ceremony. Marcus knew it was her before he saw her face. The sound of her shoes measured unhurried, cut through the precinct's background noise with confidence that didn't ask permission. When she stopped in front of the cell, the younger officers straightened without realizing they were doing it. Marcus Reed, she said. I'm Elaine Porter. Marcus stood. Thank you for coming. Elaine studied him for half a second longer than necessary. Not his clothes, not his posture, but his eyes. The look wasn't sympathy. It was assessment. They let you see him already? Hargrove's voice came from behind her. Elaine turned slowly. They don't let me, she said. I inform them. Hargrove crossed his arms. He's being held pending review. Elaine nodded. Then you won't mind explaining the legal basis. The sergeant appeared, summoned by tone alone. Ms. Porter, he said. We're still processing. Processing requires cause. Elaine cut in. So far, I see none. Marcus watched the exchange carefully. This was a language he understood. Leverage, precision, silence used as pressure. He was detained for suspicious loitering. Hargrove said. Escalated due to noncompliance. Elaine pulled out a legal pad. Define loitering. Hargrove blinked. Hanging around a closed business. The mall was open, Elaine said. You know that. I know that. The cameras know that. Try again. The sergeant cleared his throat. Officer Hargrove perceived a potential threat. Elaine finally looked at him. Perceived by whom exactly? Silence. Elaine turned back to Hargrove. Did he threaten you? No. Did he attempt to flee? No. Did he resist arrest? He was argumentative. Elaine wrote something down. Argument is not a crime. Hargrove's jaw tightened. You weren't there. Elaine looked up, eyes sharp. Neither were your supervisors when you decided to escalate. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief, but alignment. The facts were finally being spoken in the right order. I want to see the body camera footage, Elaine said. The sergeant hesitated. That requires authorization. Elaine smiled thinly. You can give it voluntarily, or I can compel it within the hour. Another pause. A recalculation. We'll retrieve it, the sergeant said. As they waited, Elaine stepped closer to Marcus's cell. Have they charged you? No. Good, she said. That means they're nervous. Hargrove scoffed. You think this is a game? Elaine didn't look at him. No. Games have rules. An officer returned with a tablet. The footage loaded slowly. Grainy at first, then clear. Marcus watched himself on screen, turning, hands visible, voice controlled. He watched Hargrove's posture shift, the space close, the word that wasn't necessary but was chosen anyway. Pause it, Elaine said. The frame froze on Marcus's face mid-sentence. Officer, she said calmly, why did you close distance at this moment? Hargrove shrugged. Officer safety. Elaine tapped the screen. His hands were visible. His tone was neutral. There was no threat vector. Hargrove said nothing. Elaine let the silence stretch. Then resume. The cuffs came out on screen faster than memory allowed. The words followed. The tone, the escalation. Elaine stopped it again. "Do you hear that?" she asked the room. The sergeant frowned. "Hear what?" "The absence," Elaine said. "No warning, no explanation, no lawful basis stated." She turned to Marcus. "Did he inform you of your detention?" "No." Elaine nodded. "Thank you." Hargrove took a step forward. "You're dissecting this like it's a classroom exercise." Elaine met his gaze. "I'm dissecting it like it's evidence." She closed the tablet. "My client is being released." The sergeant hesitated. "We still need—" "You need probable cause," Elaine said. "You don't have it. What you do have is unlawful detention, potential civil liability, and a body cam that contradicts your report." Marcus watched the sergeant's shoulders sag just slightly. "We can't just—" the sergeant began. Elaine leaned in. "Then call your supervisor." They waited again. This time, the waiting felt different. Less endless, more brittle. Hargrove paced. "You think this ends with him walking out?" Elaine didn't answer him. She spoke to Marcus instead. "When you leave," she said quietly, "do not speak to anyone without me present. Not police. Not media." Marcus nodded. "Understood." The sergeant returned with a man in a suit Marcus hadn't seen before. Captain's bars. Careful expression. "Ms. Porter," the captain said. "Let's talk." They stepped aside. Voices dropped. Marcus caught fragments. "Optics. Pending review. No charges at this time." Finally, Elaine returned. "They're releasing you," she said. "No charges." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Just like that." "Not just like that," she said. "They'll try to frame it as a misunderstanding." Hargrove laughed bitterly. "You people always want to be victims." Elaine turned on him so fast Marcus almost missed it. "No," she said. "You want to be unaccountable." Hargrove opened his mouth, closed it. Marcus's belongings were returned. Wallet, keys, phone, cracked screen taped over with evidence seal. As they walked toward the exit, Marcus glanced back once. Hargrove stood by the desk, watching. "This isn't over," Hargrove said. Elaine didn't break stride. "You're right," she said. "Now it's documented." Outside, the night air felt unreal. Marcus stood still for a moment, grounding himself. Elaine watched him. "You okay?" "I'm free," Marcus said. "That's not the same thing." She nodded. "No, it's just the beginning." By morning, the story had a shape, and it wasn't the one the police intended. Marcus Reed sat at his kitchen table, untouched coffee cooling in front of him, watching the same clip loop on mute across 3 different screens. The video had been stabilized, slowed, annotated. A red circle hovered around the moment Hargrove's hand moved to the cuffs. A caption read, "An old probable cause stated." Vanessa stood by the window. Phone pressed her ear. "Yes," she said. "That's correct. He's the sole owner." Pause. "Yes, the mall." She ended the call and turned. "They confirmed," she said. "Local outlet first. National by noon." Marcus nodded once. "And the department?" "Silent," Vanessa said. "For now." Elaine Porter arrived 10 minutes later. Coat already off. Sleeves rolled. "We don't control the narrative," she said without preamble. "But we can anchor it." She spread documents across the table. Incorporation filings, property records, tax documents. Boring paper. Powerful proof. "This is not about wealth," Elaine continued. "It's about credibility. When the public understands that the man in cuffs was not suspicious, but responsible for thousands of jobs, the contradiction becomes undeniable." Marcus leaned back. "I didn't want this to be about who I am." Elaine met his eyes. "It already is. The question is whether it stays only about you." At the precinct, Captain Lewis watched the same footage with a different expression. Tight, defensive. Hargrove sat across from him, arms crossed. "They're twisting it," Hargrove said. "You know how these things go." Lewis didn't look at him. "I know how body cams go. They don't show intent. They show behavior," Lewis replied. And behavior is what we answer for. An aide knocked and stepped in. "Sir, the reporter's here." Lewis exhaled. Of course they are. The press conference was brief, controlled, carefully worded. "We are reviewing the incident," Lewis said at the podium. "At this time, no charges have been filed. The department takes all allegations seriously." A reporter raised her hand. "Captain, were you aware the individual detained was the owner of the property?" Lewis paused. "That information was not known at the time." Another voice cut in. "Should it have mattered?" Lewis's jaw tightened. "We treat all individuals equally under the law." The clip hit social media within minutes. The pause before the answer became the headline. Back at the mall, tenants gathered in clusters that looked like coincidence but weren't. The owner of a small bookstore shook his head. "I've been saying it for years," he muttered. "They decide who belongs." A restaurant manager replied, "If it can happen to him, what about the rest of us?" Security footage from the mall leaked next, not by accident. It showed Marcus arriving earlier that evening, greeting staff by name, stopping to talk with a janitor whose daughter had just started college. The caption read, "This is suspicious." By mid-afternoon, a national outlet ran the full piece. Black entrepreneur detained at Omal. Body cam raises questions. Marcus didn't read the comments. Vanessa did, grimacing. Same pattern, she said. Disbelief. Deflection. A few threats. Elaine tapped the screen. And a shift. See that? They're no longer asking what he did. They're asking why the officer did. At the precinct, internal affairs arrived quietly. No sirens. No announcements. Just two plainclothes officers walking past desks that suddenly grew very busy. Hargrove watched them from across the room. "This is because of the press," he said to a colleague. His colleague didn't answer. In a studio across town, Marcus sat under bright lights, mic clipped to his jacket. The interviewer leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell the officer who you were?" she asked. Marcus answered evenly. "Because it shouldn't have mattered." "Do you believe race played a role?" Marcus paused. He chose his words carefully, not to soften, but to sharpen. "I believe patterns play roles," he said. "And I believe we only notice them when they collide with expectations." The clip went viral. Back in Hargrove's apartment, the television stayed on while his phone buzzed unanswered on the counter. His name trended locally, not in his favor. Old complaints resurfaced. A traffic stop. A search. A warning that never quite stayed informal. At the precinct, Lewis closed his office door. "You didn't mention the language," he said quietly. Hargrove bristled. "I didn't say anything illegal." Lewis looked at him. "You said enough." By evening, the mayor issued a statement calling for transparency. By night, protesters gathered outside the precinct, not shouting, not violent. Just signs, phones, witnesses. Marcus watched from his living room window as a live feed showed the crowd growing. Elaine stood beside him. "This is the part people don't see," she said. "Exposure feels like power." "It's not. It's pressure." Marcus nodded. "And pressure breaks things." At the mall, the board of trustees requested an emergency meeting. Investors called. Lawyers drafted statements that tried to sound neutral and failed. Vanessa closed her laptop. "They want you to speak." Marcus shook his head. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because they're still deciding what this is about," he said. "Let them finish." Across town, Hargrove sat alone in his car outside the precinct, engine off. He watched officers he'd trained walk past him without acknowledgement. For the first time, the silence felt different. Not protective, exposing. Retaliation did not announce itself. It arrived disguised as procedure. Marcus noticed it first in the delays. Permits that had always cleared in days stalled without explanation. Routine inspections were suddenly overdue. An email from the city's compliance office arrived at dawn, flagged urgent, requesting documentation that had already been submitted twice. Vanessa read it, jaw tightening. "They're testing boundaries," she said, "seeing how much friction they can create without calling it punishment." Elaine nodded. "That's how institutions push back. Quietly, plausibly." Marcus leaned against the counter, arms folded. Then we respond loudly or not at all. Neither, Elaine said. We respond precisely. At the precinct, Hargrove sat in an interview room with internal affairs. No badge on the table. No friendly tone. Walk us through the stop, the investigator said. I already did, Hargrove replied. In my report. We're asking again, the investigator said. With the footage. They played the clip, paused it, rewound it. Why did you escalate? The investigator asked. He was challenging my authority. Is that a threat? The investigator asked. Hargrove hesitated. It can be. The investigator wrote something down. Noted. When Hargrove left the room, he found his locker sealed with a red tag. Administrative leave. Pending review. He ripped it down and stuffed his gear into a duffel, ignoring the looks that followed him out. Across the city, Marcus met with tenants in a closed session. The room was tense but attentive. I won't pretend this hasn't affected business, Marcus said. It has. A shop owner raised a hand. Are we safe? She asked. Marcus answered directly. Safety isn't a feeling. It's policy. And policies are under review. Another voice. What if the police target us? Marcus held the question. Then we document. We escalate. We don't normalize abuse. Some nodded. Some didn't. Fear doesn't move uniformly. By afternoon, Marcus's home address appeared online. Not posted by an official outlet. Not condemned by one either. Vanessa forwarded the screenshot to Elaine. This crosses into threat territory, Vanessa said. Elaine agreed. We file. We document. We don't react emotionally. A brick landed on Marcus's lawn that night. No note. No message. Just impact. Marcus stood at the window, watching the porch light illuminate broken grass. That's the point, he said quietly. They want reaction. Elaine's voice was flat. They want retreat. At the precinct, Hargrove met with his union representative. They're scapegoating you, the rep said. You followed training. Hargrove slammed his hand on the table. Then why am I out? The rep hesitated. Because the story got bigger than procedure. Hargrove leaned back, breathing hard. That man ruined my career. The rep said nothing. The next morning, a second video surfaced. Different officer. Different year. Same tone. Same escalation. The pattern hardened. A city council member called for an independent review. Another warned against rushing to judgment. Marcus sat with Elaine as they watched the vote stream. This is where it slows, she said. Institutions resist velocity. Marcus nodded. But they can't reverse exposure. At the mall, police cruisers parked conspicuously near entrances. Officers lingered longer than necessary. A message without words. Security logged everything. Timestamps. Badge numbers. Routes. This is intimidation, the supervisor said. Marcus replied. Then we treat it like evidence. That evening, Marcus received a call from an unknown number. You should have stayed quiet, a voice said before disconnecting. Elaine listened to the recording twice. Added to the file. Is that enough? Marcus asked. It's cumulative, she said. Pressure isn't one act. It's a series. At the precinct, Lewis met privately with the mayor's chief of staff. We're losing control of this, Lewis said. The staffer replied, You lost control when the footage went public. Lewis rubbed his temples. Hargrove's not a rogue. That's not the defense you think it is, the staffer said. By nightfall, Internal Affairs recommended formal charges. Unlawful detention, falsification of report. The memo leaked within the hour. Hargrove watched the headline appear on his phone. He threw it across the room. This is political, he muttered. Across town, Marcus watched the same headline in silence. Do you feel vindicated? Vanessa asked. Marcus shook his head. I feel exposed. Elaine closed her folder. That's the cost. Retaliation means they know the threat is real. Outside, a small crowd gathered again, not chanting, not violent, holding signs that read document, everything and power leaves a trail. Marcus stepped onto his porch, not to speak, just to be seen. Cameras flashed. He raised one hand, then lowered it. Inside, Elaine watched the feed. "They're waiting for collapse," she said. Marcus replied, "Then we deny them the spectacle." Across the city, Hargrove sat alone, badge on the table, staring at the silence where authority used to answer back. Retaliation had done its work. So had resistance. The hearing room was smaller than Marcus expected, not a grand courtroom. No soaring ceilings, just wood-paneled walls, a long table, microphones that amplified breath as much as words. The kind of room where decisions were framed as administrative, not moral, where lives were summarized in bullet points and time limits. Marcus sat beside Elaine, hands folded, posture neutral. Across the room, Hargrove sat with his attorney, shoulders squared, jaw tight. He wore a suit that didn't quite fit, like a costume borrowed too late. The chairwoman cleared her throat. "This proceeding concerns Officer Daniel Hargrove and allegations of unlawful detention and conduct unbecoming." Conduct unbecoming. The phrase floated, sanitized. Elaine leaned slightly toward Marcus. "Listen for patterns," she murmured. "Not apologies." The first witness was a junior officer. Nervous, earnest. He described the stop in clipped sentences, sticking closely to what could be verified. "Did you observe Mr. Reed resist?" the chairwoman asked. "No." "Did you hear a warning issue before the cuffs?" "No." Hargrove stared straight ahead. Next came a mall employee, the security supervisor. He spoke carefully, aware of the thin line between honesty and retaliation. "I recognized Mr. Reed immediately," he said. "I hesitated to intervene because police presence changes dynamics." Elaine stood. "Can you explain what you mean by that?" The man swallowed. "There's an understanding. You don't contradict an officer unless you're prepared for consequences." A murmur moved through the room. The chairwoman tapped her gavel lightly. "Order." Then the room shifted. Elaine called the first civilian witness. A woman in her 30s approached the table, hands shaking. She introduced herself, voice barely steady. "I was stopped by Officer Hargrove 2 years ago," she said. "Traffic stopped. He searched my car without consent. Did he state cause?" Elaine asked, "No." "Did you file a complaint?" The woman nodded. It went nowhere. A second witness followed, then a third. Different ages, different circumstances, same vocabulary. Escalation, attitude, safety. Marcus felt the weight of it settle. Not as shock, but confirmation. He was an exception. He was a threshold. Hargrove's attorney objected. "These are unrelated incidents." Elaine responded calmly. "They establish pattern." The chairwoman allowed it. When it was Marcus's turn, the room went still in a way that cameras couldn't fully capture. He walked to the table, sat, adjusted the microphone. "Mr. Reed." Elaine said, "Why didn't you identify yourself as a mall's owner during the stop?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Because I didn't want special treatment." A ripple of discomfort moved through the panel. "And what treatment did you receive instead?" Marcus paused. He chose precision over rhetoric. "I received the treatment that assumes guilt before context," he said. "The treatment that requires me to manage someone else's fear." Hargrove shifted in his seat. Elaine nodded. "How did that feel?" Marcus inhaled slowly. "Familiar." That word landed harder than anything else he could have said. The chairwoman leaned forward. "Officer Hargrove, you may respond." Hargrove stood. His voice was controlled, practiced. "I followed my training," he said. "I perceived a threat." Elaine rose immediately. "Based on what?" "Behavior," Hargrove said. Elaine gestured to the screen behind them as the footage replayed. "Please identify the threatening behavior." Hargrove watched himself on screen. The silence stretched. "He was questioning me," Hargrove said finally. Elaine nodded. "And questioning authority is threatening? It can escalate situations." Elaine's voice sharpened slightly. "Or reveal them." The chairwoman intervened. "That's enough." Hargrove sat. During recess, Marcus stood by the window, looking out at a city that felt temporarily paused. Elaine joined him. "They're listening," she said. "To what?" Marcus asked. To the accumulation, she replied. Not you alone. All of it. When the session resumed, a final witness was called unexpectedly. A retired officer, gray-haired, calm, unafraid. I trained Officer Hargrove, he said. And others. What did you teach? The chairwoman asked. He answered plainly. That discretion without accountability becomes bias. The room went quiet. By the time closing statements ended, no one clapped. No one spoke. The chairwoman announced a decision would be delivered within days. Outside, reporters surged forward. Microphones rose like hands demanding confession. Marcus didn't stop. That evening, he sat alone in his office, lights dimmed, watching the city resume motion. Elaine called him. They'll discipline him, she said. Maybe worse. Marcus leaned back. And after? Elaine paused. After is slower. Marcus looked at the mall floor below. Shoppers moving, unaware of how close power had come to collapsing inward. The phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You embarrassed us. Marcus deleted it without reply. Across town, Hargrove sat in his living room, television off, staring at a stack of papers he no longer recognized as protection. The testimony had done what retaliation could not. It made silence impossible. The decision arrived without drama. No press conference. No raised voices. Just a PDF uploaded to a municipal website at 8:07 a.m., stamped with dates, signatures, and the careful language of consequence. Findings, sustained. Marcus read it once. Then again. The words were precise, almost sterile. Unlawful detention. Escalation without cause. Falsification of official report. Elaine sat across from him, hands folded. This is as strong as it gets without a criminal trial, she said. And the penalty? Marcus asked. Elaine slid the second page forward. Termination. Decertification recommended. Referral to the district attorney. Marcus exhaled slowly. He felt no surge of victory. No release. Just a quiet, hollow settling, like a structure finally collapsing after years of invisible rot. At the precinct, Captain Lewis read the same document with his door closed. He removed his glasses, set them on the desk, and stared at the wall. This didn't have to happen, he muttered, not as defense, but regret. Hargrove found out from his phone. The notification buzzed while he stood in line at a coffee shop, pretending to read the menu like he still had somewhere to be. He opened the email, scrolled, stopped breathing for a moment. Sir? The barista prompted. Yeah, Hargrove said, voice rough. Sorry. He stepped out of line without ordering. In his car, he read the document in full. Every paragraph felt like a mirror held too close. Words he'd once used casually were now framed as evidence. He slammed his fist against the steering wheel. This is bullshit, he said aloud, though no one was there to hear it. At City Hall, officials moved quickly, not to celebrate, but to contain. Statements were drafted emphasizing accountability, reform, training initiatives. The mayor stood at a podium that afternoon. This decision reflects our commitment to justice and transparency, she said. No one is above the law. A reporter asked, does this indicate a broader problem within the department? The mayor smiled tightly. We are always reviewing our practices. The answer satisfied no one. By evening, national outlets reframed the story again. Officer fired after wrongful arrest of mall owner. Body cam. Testimony lead to termination. The focus shifted subtly from Marcus, the system that had allowed Hargrove to operate unchecked. At the mall, employees gathered in the break room. Phones out. They fired him. Someone said, good. Another replied, about time. A third voice cut in, quieter. Does that mean it won't happen again? No one answered. Marcus walked the concourse after hours, long after the stores had closed. The lights were dimmer now, the space echoing. He passed storefronts whose leases he remembered negotiating, decisions he'd made in conference rooms far from police lights and handcuffs. Vanessa caught up to him near the atrium. They want you to make a statement, she said. Everyone does. Marcus stopped. What would I say? That Justice was served, she suggested carefully. Marcus shook his head. Justice wasn't served, he said. It was documented. At the precinct, Hargrove cleared out his locker under supervision. No ceremony, no farewell. The red administrative tag had been replaced with a white one. Employment terminated. An officer he'd mentored years ago passed him in the hall, eyes forward. "You don't have to pretend I'm invisible," Hargrove snapped. The officer paused, then spoke without turning. "I don't," he said. "I just don't know who you are anymore." Hargrove laughed bitterly. "Neither do I." Outside, protesters had thinned. Some signs remained taped to railings, curling at the edges. Accountability is not revenge. Marcus watched the live feed from his office later that night. Elaine joined him, carrying a folder she didn't open. "This is the part people misunderstand," she said. "Downfall isn't loud. It's administrative." Marcus nodded. "And incomplete." Elaine studied him. "You don't sound relieved." "I'm not," he said. "I'm aware." "Of what?" "Of how many people never get footage," Marcus replied. "Never get hearings. Never get PDFs." Elaine didn't argue. Across town, Hargrove sat at his kitchen table, uniform folded beside him. His phone rang once. "Union rep." He let it go to voicemail. On the television, a panel debated reform. His name appeared in a lower third graphic, stripped of title. "Do you regret your actions?" a host asked rhetorically. Hargrove turned the TV off. At City Hall, a memo circulated announcing new review boards, community oversight, policy updates. Words that sounded strong. Promises that would need witnesses. Marcus received a final call that night from the district attorney's office. "Not a guarantee." "Not yet. We're evaluating next steps," the voice said. "I understand," Marcus replied. After the call, he stood by the window again, watching the city lights blur into one another. The mall glowed in the distance, steady, unchanged from afar. Vanessa joined him. "You won," she said quietly. Marcus shook his head. "He fell," he corrected. "That's not the same thing." Outside, the city moved on, as it always did, absorbing consequence without ceremony. The fall had happened. What came after was heavier. When the cameras left, the quiet felt unfamiliar. Marcus noticed it first in the mornings. No news vans parked across the street. No notifications flooding his phone before sunrise. Just a low hum of the city waking up, indifferent and persistent. The story had run its course in the public eye. Another cycle completed. Another lesson archived. Inside the mall, life resumed its practiced rhythm. Stores reopened with new window displays. Seasonal sales replaced protest signs. Shoppers moved in loose currents, unaware of how close the building had come to becoming a symbol instead of a place. From the outside, nothing looked different. Marcus walked the concourse slowly, hands in his coat pockets, observing without intervening. Employees nodded, some with warmth, some with hesitation. Respect had shifted into something heavier. Recognition edged with caution. "You okay, Mr. Reed?" a janitor asked as Marcus passed. Marcus smiled faintly. "I'm here," he said. It was the most honest answer he had. In his office, Vanessa reviewed reports while Marcus stared out at the atrium. "Tenants are stabilizing," she said. "Foot traffic's back to normal." "Normal," Marcus repeated. She glanced up. "You don't like that word." "I don't trust it," he said. Elaine called later that afternoon. Her voice was calm, but tired. "The DA's office is moving forward," she said. "It'll be slow. No guarantees." "I know," Marcus replied. "And there will be retaliation that never announces itself," she added. "Board delays, zoning issues, quiet resistance." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Then we plan for that too." Elaine paused. "You've learned how this works." Marcus didn't answer right away. "I already knew," he said finally. "I just never had to feel it this directly." That night, Marcus attended a closed meeting with community leaders. No press, no microphones, just folding chairs in a multipurpose room that smelled faintly of coffee and old paint. A woman stood up first. "I'm glad you won," she said. Marcus shook his head. I didn't win. She frowned. They fired him. Yes, Marcus said, but the system that allowed him is still intact. A man in the back crosses arms. So what now? Marcus looked around the room. Faces marked by experience, skepticism, fatigue. Now we document, he said. We support each other. We stop treating survival as silence. Someone nodded. Someone else looked unconvinced. Change never moved as a group. At the precinct, Captain Lewis attended a training session he hadn't planned to sit through. New policies, new language, the same officers shifting in their seats. Accountability is not optional, the instructor said. Lewis watched faces carefully. He knew which ones were listening and which were waiting for the moment to pass. In a smaller apartment across town, Hargrove unpacked a box he hadn't opened since moving in years ago. Old commendations, photos from the academy, a younger version of himself smiling beside a patrol car, certainty still intact. He picked up a framed certificate, stared at it, then set it face down in the box. For the first time, no institution stood between him and consequence. The realization didn't feel like justice. It felt like exposure. Back at the mall, Marcus sat alone in his office late into the evening. The building was quiet, lights dimmed. He replayed moments he hadn't let himself sit with before. The cuffs tightening, the words spoken with intent, the silence of bystanders. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Thank you for not letting this disappear. Marcus stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone down without replying. Gratitude was heavy. It carried expectation. Vanessa knocked softly and stepped in. You should go home, she said. In a minute, Marcus replied. She hesitated. They've invited you to join the oversight committee. Marcus turned. As what? A voice, she said. He considered that. Voices get used, he said, and discarded. Sometimes, Vanessa replied. Sometimes they change rooms. Marcus nodded slowly. As he walked out of the mall that night, the automatic door slid open smoothly. No hesitation, no recognition, just function. He paused at the threshold, the same place where it started, and felt the echo of that night settle into something quieter but permanent. He understood now that resilience wasn't the absence of damage. It was a decision to continue with awareness intact. Across the city, conversations moved on. New headlines replaced old ones. But in certain rooms, policies were rewritten with a little more care. In certain homes, people spoke up a little sooner. Marcus drove away from the mall, not looking back. The cameras were gone. The memory was not, and that he knew was where the real work lived. Chapter 10, but 1,100 words. Chapter 10, what remains. Approximate. 1,100 words. The first real change arrived quietly, the way most lasting things did. Marcus noticed it in the paperwork before he noticed it in people. A revised protocol memo from the city's compliance office arrived without delay, clean and specific. A request for footage came with a warrant attached instead of a favor implied. Small corrections, structural ones, the kind that didn't trend. He didn't mistake them for redemption. At the mall, a new plaque appeared near the west entrance. Not his idea, not his name. It listed emergency procedures, rights during police interactions, contact numbers for legal aid, practical, unromantic, necessary. A security guard approached him one morning. "This helps," the guard said, tapping the plaque lightly. "People ask about it." Marcus nodded. "Good. What should I tell them?" "Tell them it exists," Marcus said. "That's enough." The district attorney's case moved forward in fits and starts. Motions, delays, technical arguments dressed up as principle. Elaine updated him without commentary, just facts. When the arraignment date finally set, it felt less like culmination and more like confirmation. "Do you want to attend?" Elaine asked. "Yes," Marcus said, "but not to speak." The courtroom was larger than the hearing room had been, but no less restrained. The language changed. The stakes sharpened. Hargrove entered through a side door, eyes forward, face closed. He didn't look at Marcus. Marcus didn't look away. The charges were read. The plea entered. The machinery turned. Outside, reporters waited. Marcus walked past them without stopping. He understood now the difference between visibility and agency. Later that day, Marcus met with the Oversight Committee. The room was neutral by design. Glass walls, long table, no hierarchy visible. He listened more than he spoke. A council member asked, "What would you prioritize?" Marcus answered without embellishment. Documentation that can't be buried. Training that isn't symbolic. Consequences that don't depend on who the victim is. A pause followed. Pens moved. Notes were taken. Whether they would matter remained an open question. Weeks passed. Then months. The mall adapted to the new normal the way institutions always did. Incrementally, selectively. Marcus returned to his routine, but it had changed shape. He noticed more, trusted less, delegated differently. One evening, he stopped to talk with a teenager cleaning tables in the food court. "You work late," Marcus said. The teen shrugged. "Pays better." Marcus nodded. "You know your rights?" The teen hesitated. "I think so.